Thanks so much, Kendall. I'm going to introduce you now to a lady I actually went to high school with. We went to both country kids, shipped off to a little agricultural boarding school, and this lady has just done some extraordinary things since. So Jo Palmer, who is our second guest today and the final guest, no pressure Jo, of the series this year, grew up in a small town in the beautiful Snowy Mountains region of New South Wales. She went on to train as a teacher, taught all over the world through rural New South Wales, and went to North America and the UK. When she finally returned to rural Australia, she set up not one, not two, but I think 3 or 4 businesses now. And so successful have those businesses been, and so pivotal to the way we look at the future in terms of rural Australia, that she's been recognised as the national winner of the Rural Women's Award through AgriFutures only last year. She's won the Startup Superstar Award, the Young Entrepreneur Award, a Regional Contributors Award, a Light Bulb Moment Award. Oh, so many awards, it's just beyond ridiculous. We're going to talk about one particular business today, Jo, but I thought we might start by saying, where are you based these days and what does your day-to-day life look like?
Thanks, Lindsay. It's always, I feel that I really need to stop sending that when people say, oh, can you just send us a quick bio? And then I sit here like, hearing it back every time. Look, I am currently, and will be for the very foreseeable future, based at The Rock in southern New South Wales. So we're about half an hour south of Wagga and pretty much halfway between Sydney and Melbourne, but inland. So day-to-day life. Look, let's be honest, it's generally inactive wear, the joys of remote work. I float between home office and just to reiterate what Kendall was just saying about co-working and that opportunity to work and meet other people and see other people, especially when you're doing things, when you run a business or when you're working remotely. I work out of a co-working space in Wagga a couple of days a week.
Tell us about one particular business, which I think is the second business you started out of The Rock, called Pointer Remote. How did you come to build that business?
Okay, third business, but yes, third and final for a while. My husband, when I started Pointer, said that I was not allowed to start any more businesses for another 5 years. So I've got about 14 months to go until I'm allowed to start anything else. But no, I think third time lucky. I've very much found my happy place with Pointer Remote. So look, a long convoluted story in a nutshell is that I started my career as a teacher. My first business was starting a comprehensive learning centre, and I ran that in 3 towns across southern New South Wales. And it was my first experience running business, but it was also my first experience managing people remotely. My second company was a sponsorship and event management company when we worked in the ag space, and we had clients nationally. I co-founded it with a friend who lived on a farm half an hour north of Wagga, and we ran the company remotely. And as we were growing, I kept sort of thinking that we would need to grow our team, that I was looking to this incredible network of my girlfriends who had left corporate careers and were living in rural communities or on farms, and that they weren't using their skills and experience. Some of them weren't working at all. Some of them were working in jobs outside of their training or experience, and some of them just weren't working as much as they wanted to do. And I sort of said a bit of as a throwaway at a barbecue and said, oh, I can't wait till Agri Alliance is just humming along and I can start putting all these girlfriends to work. And another friend said, you know, that's a business in itself. And so nearly 4 years on, here we are. And so what started as a seek for remote work was my initial pitch of the business. So we have a job matching platform that businesses can advertise jobs on that can be done from anywhere in Australia, and job seekers can register to look for work. But yes, things have definitely sort of evolved along since that initial launch product that we started with.
Talented women that may have started out as rural women, but they end up in the cities, or they start out in the city and they fall in love and marry a farmer, and they come back out and suddenly, corporate Australia until now has really not, to my knowledge, been okay with the idea of having brilliantly skilled staff not right in front of them in the office. How did you find the response to Pointer Remote? Who actually started using it?
So my initial pitch was, right, corporate Australia, exactly what you've just said. You have spent huge amounts of time, money, energy, training up people. So I'm talking like your big four banks, your big four accounting firms, law firms, like all of these people that once that the physical location of that employee changes, so they move to another place, they move regionally, that it just sort of cuts them off and they then lose them out of their organisation. And so my initial idea was that, right, corporate Australia, you need to just re-engage these people. You've already invested in getting them to the standard and the quality that you want them to be working for you. Hire them, but do it flexibly. And look, to be honest, I've been shouting what feels like into a void for quite some time. But what I found really interesting was that very quickly we established that while we got some traction with organisations that were metro-based, where I saw huge amounts of growth and where people really were like uptaking this concept was rural-based businesses and in rural communities, because they were faced with a couple of different reasons to come with us. Some were like, yeah, we've got this. We've been running a business with a remote team or a hybrid team where they're in the office sometimes, or working from home or a co-working space or somewhere else other times, through to businesses that were like, we've been trying to advertise to get someone to relocate to our town for over 12 months and we just are not even having single applications. Right, they come to us with sort of feet dragging and they're like, okay, this is almost like a last resort. We'll do this remote work thing. So we had businesses going across that whole scale that we found that it was an easier sell, or that actually we weren't even having to sell it a huge amount because they were coming to us because they got the concept. They understand, because they're in a rural community, they know talent lives there. It might not live in their actual town, and that's why they're having challenge filling a position in an office or in a physical spot. But they know, because they also are humans in a rural community. They see this talent that's not working in their town, and they know that that is multiplied across the country and across rural Australia. So I think that when they came to us to advertise to fill a position, they realised that they were going to actually be really getting.
I feel like Australia has had a swift kick in the backside to get on board with what you've been talking about, which I realise you feel like you've been talking about it for an eternity. But COVID has just hit Australia with this notion of people are happy to work this way. Companies need to get happy with it. And in fact, it might be beneficial for all parties. You might get better outcomes. It might be more cost effective. What are your thoughts on how COVID has changed or accelerated the strategy that you came up with a few years ago?
Oh, look, to be honest, I was living in ignorant bliss, I think. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to chip away and change mindsets one mind at a time. And I completely underestimated that it was forever going to take a global pandemic or a lot more generations than I was going to see the change that has happened in the last 6 months. Like, there is absolutely no denying it. And while COVID has just been an extreme challenge for so many people, businesses, organisations, communities, the whole thing, I'm really trying to, at every opportunity, talk about the positives that we're seeing, the positives that I see for rural Australia, that we now have a seat at the table. Like, the playing field has been levelled for us. For this exact, like, the fact that you can reach people all over the country, that connectivity is a challenge for a lot of people still, especially in rural areas, but the fact that you can no longer have to use or that you're no longer missing out on an event in Sydney or an event in Perth that you physically would have had to have either taken days off work or been in cars, or the expense of actually going to a capital city to be at an event that might already be an expensive ticketed event in the first place. Like, just even that access. I'm finding that access to people, they're so much more willing to line up a meeting and just talk to you like this. It's not like trying to get into someone's calendar for a physical meeting. Like, I just think that the opportunities, if we really take advantage of this.
You and I discussed the other day the actual opportunity for rural Australia is around retention and attraction of a population. We always talk about population decline on this program. It is an issue that affects so many communities, and communities that were once thriving, and now we're talking about the potential for people to stay where they want to stay and enjoy the life they want to live there. Access to health services in terms of having stronger populations there, ensuring that, you know, if a doctor moves to a community, that their partner, male or female, is able to work professionally as well, and that communities will need to shift to accommodate this, though, to be attractive in this new remoteness world that we're living in. What do communities need to have in order to really support and attract professional women?
Yeah, look, everything that you've just said there, I agree with completely, and that's the stuff that we're seeing on the ground. So as I said, that our original business of being the connector, what's quite funny is that what I found over the last sort of 3 years or so, that we had this platform, this opportunity to connect with employers, to find a job, vice versa, to find an employee. And what I found was that we would go around the country and I would be delivering workshops and training and things to upskill people to sort of still sell this concept of remote work. And what I was finding is that a lot of the people participating, particularly the sort of individual side of things, they were quite often women, and quite often when I would say, okay, have you registered on the platform, or are you like open to actually working this way, the confidence piece from them was just straight up. They were like, oh God, no, like I haven't worked for 10 years, I've been off doing babies, or oh geez, there's a massive hole in my CV, or I just don't know if I know how to use any of this technology or all of these things. And I realized that there was this huge barrier to entry for so many people, for individuals, but also for business owners, that they didn't know how to do it. And it was a really big challenge. And that was actually what then became the grounds for my project for the Rural Women's Award, was to be able to build these businesses and individuals, like build capacity in them to be able to leverage remote work. And what's been crazy in the last 6 months is that my project for the Rural Women's Award has actually become core business for us. So we're spending a lot of our time working with rural communities around that economic development piece, that attraction and retention of population. Like, how can the communities at a council level or at a chamber level or at a community group level, what can they be doing to make their town appealing, not only to keep the people that already live there, because that's a really good thing, hold on to them, because it's harder to get new ones than it is to hold on to the ones that are already there, but also what sorts of things make a town appealing for someone to tree change or to see change, or like you said, for a town to attract a health professional or an education professional or someone that they physically need to be boots on the ground. What had previously been in the past, like I do work with the College for Rural and Regional Medicine, and one of their biggest challenges for getting doctors into rural areas is not so much that the doctor doesn't want to go, but it's what will the trailing spouse do? And the trailing spouse is like, well, it's all good for you because you get to go to work every day. What am I going to do in central West Queensland, or what am I going to do? But if a community is working towards making it appealing and attractive and creating that community like Kendall talked about, the infrastructure around it. So we've been working, we've sort of built out these remote ready frameworks. So we've got them for what a remote ready individual looks like. So you as a remote worker or a potential employee, what it looks like to be a remote ready business, so that you actually can do it not just as a slap a band-aid on when we've got a global pandemic, but like what you can actually use to leverage to grow your business. And then what a remote ready community looks like. So it's been really interesting, and working with like economic development officers in councils, like I said, in with business chambers to come and run these capacity building programs in communities. It's been very exciting, and it's really cool, just the different ideas.
You've got some amazing resources. I just for sort of clarity, I hired my operations manager through Pointer Remote, and she's 3,500 kilometres away from me, and it's just been the most superb experience. And you know, lots of other support staff and contractors, and we're hiring a rural journalist at the moment through your platform. But it's not for everyone. It's not obvious how to run a business remotely, but you've built a ton of resources on your website. How can people in this group access those? How can they make sure they're getting that information?
Oh, well, look, there is a huge amount of free resources that we've put. If you go to pointerremote.com.au, you'll see in our hub, there's a lot of resources in there that you can do. But look, we're always really keen to work with communities. We have these, like I said, capacity building programs that we can run. We can run, or even just sort of roundtable discussion with those community leaders about the things that people, I suppose demanding makes it sound a bit aggressive, but you know, the things that people are looking for when they're going to say, okay, well, where are we going? What are the things that are important to us? But a couple of key things, like, do you have co-working? Like, a lot of rural communities have got, look, the CWA is a perfect example. You're right; they own businesses. Own buildings. Sorry, all over each of the states and the country as far as the physical location. But local government often owns businesses that can be converted into hot desks. Also, adequate childcare. You want to get women into the workforce, and this whole remote work thing has forever been a challenge for women, as in, like, it's almost this carrot that's dangled. I mean, like, I actually could do this. I could do this remotely. I could do it for working from home. But then I've got these monsters that, like, am I only being able to do this in nap time, or am I, because you can't, for us to say as a platform to be able to put you forward for a job, having adequate childcare is a genuine thing. Like, you can maybe bumble along with like a newborn who does lots of sleeping, but when they start getting to things like, you can't actually do a job properly if you haven't got some help. So again, infrastructure like childcare is a really big thing as far as getting women into the workforce doing it remotely.
God.
And we're actually...
No, I'm just saying, you're getting lots of nods in the chat
sorry,
about childcare. Everyone's going, yes,
I was going to say,
yes, that's a thing that needs to happen.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I have done business with babies, like, especially my first one was like diabolical. I had 30 staff and a 4-week-old. Like, it was crazy. But it's not, no one is getting the best of me. They're not, work's not, if I don't have help. And we've done a combination of childcare and au pairs and family and all of these things. But it still is really challenging because I'm still the primary caregiver. My kids are sick. I've got 2 girls that are 6 and 4 now. My big one's at primary school now, and the other one's at daycare 4 days a week. But the thing is that if you're trying to balance all of that, it's not too hard. It's really hard. And like I said, if you imagine, like, I'm sure people have seen that that meme that goes around, and it's the racetrack, and there's all these people lining up at the starting gates on the track, and there's all these men, and then there's one woman on the lane, and she's got the washing and the kids and all of these things on her track and that's the race that she's doing, and that's a genuine thing. But I think communities can actually really do and have a really big impact on getting the women that live in their community and the new ones that they're attracting they can do huge amounts of things to remove those
you've just been
barriers
such an inspiration today to chat to. And I don't want to let you go anywhere, though, until you tell us quickly. I know you've got a sort of a partnership or an idea in the works with the Triple R Network. Can you give us an insight into what that might look like? I don't know if you can speak about it yet, but what are you planning with Kendall?
Well, what we're actually doing is so that the capacity building programs that I'm talking about, that we're rolling out in sort of different parts of the states, we've been working, and look, kudos to the Triple R Network. This was very much pre-COVID. We've been working on this for over 12 months as far as doing actually a really major rollout of these capacity building programs in Western Australia. So Kendall and I are still plugging away. We're getting there, but like it's just so exciting, and the amount of interest that we get from communities all over the country about this. And I think that while there was always an interest, we've had some really early adopting towns that we've done like over the last 3 years, but this last 6 months has been just like they're like, councils in particular have been just like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like I see this now.
If councils wanted to reach out to you outside of WA, are they able to do that via you or Kendall, or what's the way to go about that?
100%. Yeah, 100%. There's a on our community, the tab for the community on our website, I'm sure there is an expression of interest form or something that, and it doesn't have to be councils. If you're a community group or a business chamber or even just one of those leaders that Kendall was talking about in a community, reach out. We're always really interested to talk to communities that are excited about doing these things, and there's always ways that we can work out.
You're an inspiration. I love what you're doing for rural Australia. You and Kendall are just forces to be reckoned with, and everyone's clapping and putting hearts up on the little chat feed now, so hopefully you'll be able to see that, because that's us, the community builders, recognising you as leading community builders for the work you're doing and for giving up your time today.